The reason why the Bank of Canada hasn't cut because of housing yet is employment. The number one most important factor for housing is actually not interest rates. It's actually employment. And the reason why that is, people need to be employed to pay the mortgage. They need to be making those dollars to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage, to buy a house. So as long as we see the unemployment rate or jobs not being cut in Canada, we got a surprise raise in jobs, more jobs being created last month. As long as jobs are not going lower and lower, like people losing their jobs, housing market will be supported, but at a steady rate, it won't rise.
I should be a farmer with the amount of bullshit that I have to clean up. Some people like to get me going. I have been sent that video multiple times. So I'm going to clean up the bullshit in that video by showing you the real numbers. I'm also going to clean up some bullshit regarding gasoline prices, because that's new now. And I'm going to continue cleaning up the bullshit when it comes to the housing crisis. Let me start with the new bullshit story in gasoline prices. Before, when we had the carbon tax, the bullshit story was that the carbon tax didn't increase inflation. Technically it's true. Why? Because the inflation is the value of money. The supply and the demand for money, the money's overall value, that's what real inflation is, right? The consumer carbon tax on gasoline didn't print more money. But it did make the CPI go up. So, as far as you and I are concerned, it added to inflation, because that's how we measure it. But now, oil prices are falling and gasoline prices are falling, and you're being told, oh, that's all the consumer carbon tax. No, it isn't. There's oil and gasoline today. Here's Brent crude over the last year. It's down here. It was up there. You can see oil's price has fallen. Here's the wholesale price of gasoline in US dollars. Just want to point that out. And this is the overall price. There's no carbon tax in here. You can see that since 1 year ago, the prices have fallen. It has nothing to do with the carbon tax. That's all bullshit. All right, I have been pointing out how there is a global housing crisis. It's not a Canadian housing crisis. Okay, and I'm going to keep going down that path because some people just don't want to accept it. The 10 most impossibly unaffordable housing markets in the world, 5 are in the US. 1 is in Canada. It's not the GTA. You will note 3 of these cities are in Australia. From April, Australia's looming election brings housing crisis into focus. Oh my God, they have a housing crisis too? How did they get into a housing crisis? Simply put, Australia has not been building enough homes to meet the demands of its rapidly growing population, creating a scarcity. So let me get this straight. If globally we start building more housing and increasing the demand on concrete and bricks and wood and shingles and windows and doors, and increase the demand on the services like framers and electricians and plumbers, window installers, roofers, etc., somehow increasing the demand for all that stuff is somehow going to bring the cost of housing down globally? Really? Oh, that doesn't smell right. It smells like bullshit. And yeah, here in Canada, we saw the change in the population. Absolutely. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It totally happened. But it's happening everywhere? Where's everyone coming from? All right, this unemployment thing. So the Bank of Canada is not cutting rates because the unemployment numbers are so good. If only we saw unemployment increasing. Here's unemployment since 1976. Unemployment has been increasing since July of 2022. Since July of 2022, unemployment has been increasing. It was 4.8% in July of 2022, and now it's 6.9%, where it decreased 0.1 points from 7 to 6.9. As you can see, the trend line is up. And just for context, average annual unemployment rates of 3 to 5% were common before 1958 and from 64 to 69. From 1958 to 63 and in the early 1970s, 5 to 7%. So 7% is bad. The problem is that we've had 50 years of shit show. So that's why they think 7% is not bad. But it's bad. It's just not as bad as these other huge shit show points. And as I said, it's going in the wrong direction. If only unemployment were increasing, they would cut rates. How bad does it have to get before they realize it's